Okay, I'm going to do a short lesson here on doing quality research. And first thing you're going to do, obviously, is probably go to your favorite search engine. I'm a big fan of Google. And let's say I wanted to search something about, if I were doing some sort of project about the importance of athletics, sports things. So basketball is probably my favorite sport. So I might start with the importance of basketball. All right, and so there's my general search term. So things that it teaches you, good team player, great social sport, these are all really, really good. Also a pretty big fan there because that is a .gov.au, which is Australia, but still .gov is going to be sort of like stronger sources in general. But maybe I want to get even more of a framework, and so I'm just going to look up basketball on its own. Almost always your first result for concepts and ideas is going to be Wikipedia, which is great. It's great for overview, but it's really not good for actually citing Wikipedia. So I love going to Wikipedia first. Wikipedia is a great place to start, but the best thing about it, maybe I want to talk about like women's basketball. Certainly if we're talking about like gender or global impact, we're looking at Australian women's basketball team. Rules and regulations, equipment, none of that would be relevant for like psychology or sociological sort of things. Although there's some concepts here, variations, half court, recreational. So here's, if we're talking about like different social aspects of basketball, or we're talking about like how people can connect or how people spend their time, certainly there's rec here. Talk about disabled basketball. So if we're looking at different stakeholders like minorities, not minorities, people with disabilities, there's wheelchair basketball, deaf basketball. Those are all things that are really useful. But this is where you pull into references. So if we're looking at disabled basketball, so if we're doing something on research for like, activities for the disabled or, basketball universally, I can see that this is citation 71, which if I'm doing works cited is nice that I have that. But I can go to deaf sport, impact of sports within the deaf community. There's a limited book preview here, but I can certainly see potentially a few things in here about it. And it kind of goes to the back, but I can at least see psychological considerations, look at deafness, deaf and hearing world. So this is really about different things having to do with hearing loss. So this is a good place to go, and maybe I could find this in a library. It's a great place to look to see for further research. So if I'm trying to do high quality research, Wikipedia is a great starting point, and I want to make sure that I'm aware and paying attention to the citations that are down here at the bottom. The next sort of thing that I might search for is something about news. So like basketball and hearing loss. And then I want to go, there's a news tab here. So we've got the Boston Globe, Richmond.com, sportscasting, that's Fox Sports, Yahoo News, seeing what else I have. So, USA Today is, a decent one, especially for what we are talking about. So USA Today is, a national newspaper. They write articles and they do research, and September 3rd, 2020. So I'm looking at a fairly recent article. It might not be anything that is relevant to what I'm looking at in terms of like hearing loss, but certainly there are some things here. News articles, and if you're using CNN or Fox Sports or Yahoo News, ABC, NBC.com, those are great places to find quotes, but they're not going to be really good for the basis of your research. Totally fine place to start, and you might find some people, like find out who they've interviewed, then look for more information following the researcher or the political scientist. So if we did something like social justice basketball. Oh, I didn't want jerseys. Social justice basketball. I can go to news, and I've got New York Times, basketball friendship, tag team for social justice. So again, this is a news. Oh, it's probably going to tell me I can't read that. But anyway, you've got a news source here, and as we go through, looking for any particular researchers here, who are they quoting? So Beal, most of they're quoting the players. So who do we see in here? So Chief Executive, John Thompson III. I'm looking here for names for more people to search. And I'd love it if I found something about like a researcher or a PhD person, but I didn't see any of that there. So as we're doing our research, news, great places to get quotes and kind of get direction and to really understand the stakeholders and maybe some of the sides that people are taking. But when we're building our own argument, we really need to raise the bar up a little bit. And there are two high-quality search portals that we have access to. So first is Google Scholar. So scholar.google.com. And so we've got articles. You can also look at case law, but unless you're looking for legal precedent, I would stick with articles. So let's look for NBA social justice. Or let's just search for basketball and social justice. So now, talking about racial significance of sport through midnight basketball. So this is a particular type of basketball. These are books, which sometimes is tougher. I can adjust my when it's my publicity range. This is a controversy from a while back, so this is potentially a journal. I like that there's a PDF here. Those are often good signs that I'm going to actually have access, but I won't. It's restricted, which is a little bit of a bummer for me. So you don't have to buy things, so certainly don't feel like you need to. You often can reach out to the author of articles on your own. Sometimes they can help. Let's see. It's like this book, probably you don't have access to all of it. And that's kind of my complaint about, oh wow, I got a lot of this book here if I knew what in the heck I was looking for. So chapter 1, maybe at least a chapter. So Google Scholar is going to give you it's going to give you academic results, which is one of the things that we want. But it doesn't have my favorite feature, which you can access through mel.org, which is the Michigan e-library. We live in Michigan, we have access to it, so that helps. You go to e-resources, and my two favorite things are under A. My favorite is Academic Search Complete, 8,900 full text titles. And I love that we have all of these search options, but my favorite is to check full text. And if you do peer-reviewed journals, you're even better off, because those are the peak of rigor and reliability. So find all of my search terms, number of pages, I don't need any of that. You can look for images, which can be helpful, but in this, we're looking about basketball. And this is going to be all articles of all things relating to basketball. So targeting development of specific conditional qualities. I probably want newer ones. Let's look at least, let's see, the last 10 years. So that's about caffeine, shockwave therapy. So basketball, social justice. So here is something that is probably not particularly useful. It's about public apology. Why in the world did this come up? Criminal law, criminal justice, social justice, National Basketball Association. So it's talking about Kobe Bryant, who was a basketball player, and the apology on his sexual assault case. So it's a different type of social justice than racial. Maybe we want racial justice, as that's kind of the bigger issue now. So here's racial discrimination in professional basketball. I can get the full text of it, and that's really, really helpful. If you don't have full text search on, you might only get abstracts, which tells you what the article or the research is about, but doesn't give you access to the whole article for quotes, and it might not even have the parts that you want. But using EBSCOhost full text is probably my favorite search engine for high quality research. And for our weekly or bi-weekly argument papers, you want to use at least one academic EBSCOhost type source, and then for our PT1s and our IRR and PT2 and the IWA, we'll have a little bit higher standards. So these academic journals should form the backbone of your work. Now, at this point, I also want to say that one of the really important things is that you will have to have a lot of patience as you're doing your searching, because you're going to find a lot of not what you want, or man, it's close, but it's not exactly what I want. My advice is to bookmark everything, have a bunch of links, because you can always try to find more. You can flex your research question, make it more broad or more specific, and then all those things that you went before, you might want to say, hey, I want to go back to that. Shoot, what was it? So I would definitely start, link all those, and understand that this is going to take a decent amount of time. So those are kind of our biggest strategies. We'll talk a little bit about Raven, which is a way to analyze sources, and we'll talk about this in class. But Raven is just a procedure, and if you've been in my Bitmoji classroom, I have this post up. But it's just look at who is writing whatever you happen to be researching. So it's a credibility check. The R in Raven stands for reputation. So is it a reliable source? All right, is it Uncle Billy's cousin's friend's sister heard, or is it a primary source, just somebody who did their own observations or was literally there? Which also feeds into ability to observe. Is it a first-hand account? Do they have a vested interest? Does it matter to the author that you believe what they believe? Do they benefit from it? If it's, if Phil Knight is talking about how, Reebok or Under Armour shoes aren't high quality, and he's doing research and showing support, you might say, oh, wow, that's really good information. But Phil Knight also is the founder and owner of Nike. So as a Nike owner, he would have a vested interest in you not buying other shoes. Expertise is the person, an expert on the subject. We get a lot of news from a lot of different places. If you're talking to myself, I'm a great source for physics things, but when it comes to biology, I don't have any expertise in biology. So I might be smart, I might have a lot of ability, but I'm not an authority in every field. So is the researcher, or is the author, or the writer, or the person being interviewed have expertise in the field that you're looking for? And then do they have neutrality? Are they neutral? Are they left biased or right biased? I'm a big fan of any time I read a news article or a political article, I go to mediabias.com, especially when it comes from a source that I'm not familiar with. We all know CNN is a little bit to the left. We know that Fox News is farther right on the other side, but we've got the media bias chart. There's mediabias.com, which will give you some information, but you want to check. Is it just a presentation of information, or is there a particular bias where they have a really strong feeling? So those are some tips for research. Hopefully we'll talk more about it, but we want to carry all that throughout our AP Sem year. So again, start with broad search term, get up at Wikipedia, use the sources there, and narrow your search or find some good people to talk to or look into. News is great for public opinion and quotes and finding experts. It's not good for the foundation of your argument for the most part. To build your own argument and to build your own research and to really get into the nitty-gritty, which is what we need that depth, you want to go to Google Scholar or EBSCO, which we access through mel.org. Helps to search for full-text articles, helps to be patient, and once you do have something, you want to check their credibility using Raven or any of the other methods that we've worked on.